Okay, I'm not going to have the Makoros behind me as usual. I'm not home, but I'm going to share my screen with the Makoros here. Okay, there we go. So now you see the Makoros here. Okay, everyone's all set. We're ready. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with the sugya of whether we recite a Shehechiyanu at lighting candles on Yom Tov. Okay, so this Shavuos, when we light candles, do our wives, do whoever it is, do you recite a bracha of Shehechiyanu? Okay, that's the question. So we saw in the first source that we do light candles on Yom Tov. That's the first thing to establish, because that's not a guarantee, right? That we light candles on Yom Tov, but we do. And instead of saying the bracha of Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos, we say Lahadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. The Mishnah Berurah quickly points out in source number 2 here, he says, so he says, and you don't have to say Shehechiyanu on candle lighting on Yom Tov, right? That's so, which is interesting that he brings that up, being the fact that really the question should be, why would you make a Shehechiyanu at candlelight, right? We're sort of like taking it as an assumption that we do. We do, by the way, just like to spoiler alert here, we don't usually do practical love anyway. So, but we do make I don't know if any Temanim don't, but just about everybody else does recite a Shehechiyanu on candlelighting on Yom Tov. So the real question is why, you have to figure out why you would also, right? So he says that you don't need to, the Mishnah Berurah here in source number 2. But he says that in a place where people have the custom to recite a Shehechiyanu, so then you shouldn't stop them. You shouldn't say, hey, that's wrong, which is something that we normally do. If somebody's going to say a bracha that's not necessary, so then we would say, hey, that's not something you should do. You should stop doing that. Don't do that ever again, right? So you say that no, if there is an accepted custom that people do this, then we should allow them to. Okay. The Aruch HaShulchan goes on. He says that he quotes a bunch of people that says that you do say Shehechiyanu, even though he says they're basing themselves on Yerushalmi, which is not in our text of Yerushalmi. And he says that we shouldn't stop them either. And he says the reason why they say Shehechiyanu, and this is key for us here, this is a key line, is he says because they say Shehechiyanu when it's close to Yom Tov. He says in the second to last line here, Da'api Rov Erev Yom Tov Malikos L'Eis Erev Mamish B'kai Shehechiyanu Al Yom Tov. He says the Shehechiyanu is, since they're lighting candles so close to Yom Tov, so the Shehechiyanu falls on the Yom Tov itself, as opposed to maybe on the candle lighting, right? So if you were reciting a Shehechiyanu on the candle lighting, so that would be strange. So you'd say, well, that you shouldn't do. But here what we're saying is, no, they're not saying it's on the candle lighting, saying it's on the Yom Tov, and that's why they're saying it. They're saying it's on the Yom Tov. Or Moshe says that there doesn't really seem to be a reason to do it, but we've been doing it for hundreds of years, so we're going to continue, right? So that was Moshe Feinstein's, and that's essentially why we do it nowadays, because we've always done it. We've done it for the last couple hundred years, so we're going to stop now, right? We're going to continue doing it. That seems to be like the halacha l'maisa approach. Okay, good. Fine to this point? Okay, no real fireworks.
Nope, nobody's worried about a bracha of Atala saying Hashem's name in vain.
Well, they are, and they say, but since we're doing this anyway, so we're going to continue doing it. Now, that's the ultimate fear. Anytime you have a bracha, so whenever there's a question over reciting a bracha, the ultimate fear is, okay, do we, we shouldn't say it because it's a bracha of Atala, so we should stop. That's the ultimate question. Okay, so that's always on our fear. But there has to be more here when we discuss what the reasoning is behind what's the debate here. So that's we have to figure out what are the two sides. It's not just bracha, suffix brachos, which would be then we don't say it. But what's the machlokes here? What are the two sides of the debate here about whether or not we recite a Shehechiyanu or we don't when we light candles? That's got to be our question. Okay. Okay, so we've got to advance an argument for both. Okay, so the Rambam says that we say Shehechiyanu on 3 different things, right? So he says that, and the first one, this is what's very important to us. This is source number 6. any mitzvah that comes up from time to time, like it's periodic mitzvahs, like they're set on the calendar. So shofar, sukkah, lulav, megillah, ner Chanukah, right? And then any mitzvah that it requires a purchase, like you buy something, tzitzis, tefillin, mezuzah, a fence around your house, makkah, and any mitzvah that you don't do that often, bris milah, pidyon haben, right? So then you say Shehechiyanu on them, okay? So that's one time, okay? And then the Rambam also says, Kol Yom Tov, Yom Kippurim, Omrim Shehechiyanu. Whenever there's a night like a Leil Yom Tov, so Seder night, right? Sukkot night, and then Shmini Atzeres night, because that's its own, okay? And then he says on Yom Kippur night, Rosh Hashanah night, Yom Kippur. So then you say a Shehechiyanu, okay? Right? And then he says the last night of Pesach, you don't say Shehechiyanu because that's really just from the first night. So there's nothing new here. Okay, so that's why we don't say Shehechiyanu on Pesach. But we say Shehechiyanu there is a Shehechiyanu recited on every Leil Yom Tov. And there's something clearly missing here from the Rambam here in this halacha. Right? What do you see that's missing? He doesn't say when you say it. Right? He just says you say it. So when do you say the Shehechiyanu? He says like on Leil Yom Tov, right? It's source number 7. So he says on Leil Yom Tov, you recite the Shehechiyanu, right? So, but when? Right? It's very strange. You just like kind of like, puts it out there, but doesn't exactly delineate when you say Shehechiyanu. It's like walking home from shul. Do I recite Shehechiyanu? Do I recite prior davening? Right? On Yom Kippur, when do we say Shehechiyanu? On Yom Kippur, we say it during Kol Nidrei. Right? If you remember, during Kol Nidrei, at the end of Kol Nidrei, the Chazan stands up and he says Shehechiyanu, and then either people say it with him or they say it after him, or they're Yotzei with his Shehechiyanu, whatever it is. But that's at Yom Kippur. But like on Shavuos night, when are you supposed to make the Shehechiyanu? Right? So, and then the question is like this, more to our point here, what is the nature of that Shehechiyanu? Right? What's the nature of this Shehechiyanu that we're saying at Yom Tov? What do we do? If I buy a new garment, so I understand what the Shehechiyanu is, right? It's on the garment. There's something in this, right? Okay. There's a mitzvah from time to time, shofar. Okay, so I'm doing a mitzvah now. So what's the nature of the Shehechiyanu of Yom Tov? What is that? Okay. That's I want to know what the nature of the Shehechiyanu is, and then when's the ideal time to say it? Right? When should I be saying the Shehechiyanu? Ideally, when's the ideal time to be saying the Shehechiyanu? Good. Okay. So so now the question is like this: what is hadlakos neros? Right? When I say that, now it's hadlakos neros. When we say that there's that we light candles, right? So what is candle lighting? What is that? Is that a mitzvah? Is that what is it? So if you look, the Rambam says that it's source number 8. He says hadlakos neros Shabbos ein reshus imrotza madlik v'imrotza eno madlik. So it's not one of these things that if you want to light, you can light it. If you don't want to light, you don't have to light, right? The low mitzvah she'eno chayav or dofachara. It's not one of these mitzvahs that you're not, it's like a double negative, that you're not obligated to run afterwards. Actually, a sinner could go to Erev Chatzeros on Netil Sidayim Lachila. Elachova, it's an obligation, right? You have to light candles. Lighting candles, this is sort of ingrained in us, but it's not a given, right? Because lighting candles, it's not a given that it's an obligation. We have to say it somewhere. Right, so this is where we say that it's an obligation. Okay, but what's the nature of this obligation? So the Rambam says that he goes on. He says, "Afilo." This is like a third line here. Afilo ein lo mayachol shol psachim v'lokech shemen u'madlikas aner. Right. So even if you don't have you're so poor, you have nothing to eat that Shabbos. Right. So, but in any case, you should still beg on the doors for oil, and you should get enough oil to light Shabbos candles. Shezeh b'chlal oneg Shabbos. Basically, he calls it oneg Shabbos. Right, that's what candle lighting is. It's Oneg Shabbos. Oneg Shabbos. I didn't bring it down here in the Makoros. I should have. But Oneg Shabbos is a mitzvahs Nevi'im. Right, the Nevi'im say that you have to have Kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos. From the Torah we have Zachor and Shamor. From Nevi'im we have Oneg and Kavod. Okay, so we know that it's Oneg and Kavod Shabbos. Okay, so but if you look here, and this is famous, like it seems like a stira in the Rambam, but the Gra already explained it. He says in source number 9, he says, "Mesader adam shulchan Erev Shabbos." Right, a person should set their tables on Erev Shabbos, even though they're only going to have, let's say, they don't have anything to eat. They only have a kazayis to eat. You still have to set the table. right? And also on Motzi Shabbos, okay? And because that's a way of us giving kavod to Shabbos. Okay? And then he says, so he calls here, he calls candlelighting kavod Shabbos, right? So in the previous halacha, he said it was oneg Shabbos, and here he says kavod Shabbos. So this is like a famous like stira that they quote in the Rambam, where he calls one oneg and one kavod. So the answer is pretty easy to figure out what's happening here. Okay? The Rambam is saying as follows. The Rambam is saying that the oneg Shabbos is when you enjoy Shabbos, right? That's stuff that you enjoy Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos is preparing for Shabbos. So kavod Shabbos comes first. So for instance, eating a good meal, that's oneg Shabbos, right? Setting my table, that's kavod Shabbos, right? Because I'm getting the table prepared before Shabbos. That would qualify as kavod. If it's something that I enjoy, eating the meal, that's oneg Shabbos, right? Cooking the meal is kavod Shabbos. So candle lighting is like both, because when do I light the candles? I light the candles before Shabbos, right? So therefore it's preparation. But when do I enjoy the candles, right? The enjoyment of the candles itself is not even two lighting candles. The enjoyment of the candles is oneg Shabbos, right? That's pleasure Shabbos. So it's actually both. So the Rambam calls it both, and that's how we usually understand the Rambam here. So Hadlakos Neros, and the point that I'm bringing this here is to show that Hadlakos Neros is a pretty important and integral part of Shabbos. In fact, the Rambam says here in source number 10 that if you have the like Ner Beisov, Ner Chanukah, if you have Shabbos candles, you only have enough money on Shabbos Chanukah for candles, for Shabbos candles or Chanukah candles, or candles for your house or Kiddush. So candles, Shabbos candles comes first because it's Shalom Bayis. Well, how's it Shalom Bayis? So what's the idea behind candles? Like what's the oneg? What's the pleasure in having candles?
Having light.
What?
Having light.
So why is that so great?
So you can enjoy Shabbos. You can learn. You can walk without tripping.
So the walking without tripping. So it is really what it is. And they talk about the Gemara goes into this is what would have happened is that you come home from shul and like you leave, the house was like all clean and everything, and then like you're in shul and your kids are playing and they leave toys all over the place, and then you come home, it's dark, and you step on all the toys and you scream at your wife, right? So the Shabbos candles prevent that, because then you can see the toys that you're not stepping on, right? That's the whole idea behind Shabbos candles. I'm sure there's like you can find other people like in the 1800s that like talk about spirituality with the candles, but that has nothing to do with it, right? So and therefore, yeah.
So Rabbi, today would we say that candle lighting is closer to kavod than oneg?
Because you say because of electricity.
Yeah, because we have light everywhere. We don't use the Shabbos candle for light.
No one's ever been able to satisfactorily answer my question about why we still light candles. I don't understand it. That's a lot of people.
Wouldn't it be the reason we say Shehechiyanu for Ner Yontif, because we've been doing it for hundreds of years?
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying here, there's a difference between the two. One is like there seems to be like no reason to do it, and here things have changed where I'm able to fulfill the mitzvah in a different way, right? So like Aliza, when she lights, like my wife when she lights, she makes the bracha on the candles, lights the candles, and then turns on the lights in where we eat on our porch, right? And she turns on the lights, including the electricity in the bracha, right? Because that's right. So that we do in order to make sure. And like if you're in a hotel where like you're not allowed to light candles, right? The hotel has rules against lighting candles in the rooms. So there you can make a bracha and light the electricity in your room, like in the hallway, let's say in your hotel room. And that's Yossi. In fact, Rav Soloveitchik had a special bracha for that. He changed the text of the bracha. I don't know what it is, but he changed the text of the bracha for lighting with electric lights on Shabbos instead of with a candle. But I don't know. Most people they light candles, and the light of the candles assumes.
You just froze.
Yeah.
I froze. Can you hear me?
Video's sound froze.
Okay.
He froze for me too.
How about now? I don't know what to do now.
There you go.
I'm back.
Yeah, you
you're
said
back.
You said you didn't know the bracha of Rab Soloveitchik, but he
right. So Soloveitchik had a special bracha. I don't know what it is, but he had, but he would include, you know, he had for the electricity, he had, you know, a bracha. So that's the, you know, so candlelighting. The point is that, like, I don't know why we light candles anymore. That most of us, the candles are subsumed under the light of electricity. Most of us don't even notice the candles lit. But where we light, for sure, don't see candles. You know.
But yet you like Elisa lights candles anyway.
Yeah, because I can't figure out why we shouldn't light candles. You know, so we've been doing it for hundreds of years. So yeah, but I can't. But all my Rebbeim that I've asked, he said, yeah, we don't know why, but yeah, you should still light candles. So until somebody tells me don't light candles, I'm not going to stop lighting candles. You know, so. But in any case, the point is that candle lighting is an important part of, and it's really the bridge between before Shabbos and the start of Shabbos, right? That's what it sort of does. It sort of bridges the two. Okay. At the same time, Kiddush. What is Kiddush? All right. So you have a mitzvah in the Torah to mitzvah sasei min Torah. Like Kadesh is Yom Shabbos b'dvarim, right? So Kiddush is we automatically think when we hear Kiddush, we think of a kos, right? But the kos is an addition to Kiddush, right? It's not really part of the essence of Kiddush. Right, but because they have a pasuk Zachar Yom Shabbos Lakadsho, Zachar in the Torah doesn't mean to remember; it means to verbalize. So we have a mitzvah to verbalize Shabbos as it starts. So we usually do that during Ma'ariv and Shemon Esrei, but then the Rabbanan came along and said you have to do that over a kos as well, over a cup of wine. So that's what we do, and that's why the Gemara here in source number 12 says Mikol Makom Binyan kos. Does it really need a kos? Right. So it says. That you could say Shehechiyanu, right? The question the Gemara is dealing with is, do you really have to say Shehechiyanu on a cup of wine? Because when do we say Shehechiyanu? Men. When do men generally say Shehechiyanu? We say Shehechiyanu when we make Kiddush on Leil Yom Tov, right? That's generally what we're going to do. You're going to make Kiddush on Leil Yom Tov. So if at Kiddush, sorry, we're going to say Shehechiyanu at Kiddush on Leil Yom Tov. So we usually do it over kos, but the Gemara says here. You can say it even in the marketplace. Like you're walking home through the shuk. Let's say you live in Nachlaot and you're walking home through the shuk. You could just recite a Shehechiyanu. No problem. You don't need it. So it says, Halo kasha diklo lekos. So it says, no, if you have a kos, then if you have a cup of wine, that's ideally the best time. That's what the Miri says here. He says that no, even right, if you're in the, you can say it in the shuk, meaning you could just say it on your walk home, no problem. But if as long as you're able to recite it on a kos, then you should recite it on a kos. That's what you should do. That's ideal. Okay. So the question is, why is it better to recite Shehechiyanu al kos? Why is it better on the cup? Right? Why is the Gemara saying that you should recite it on the cup? What does that have to do with anything? Right, so why say it on during Kiddush? Right, why Gemara is saying the ideal time to say Shehechiyanu is on a Kiddush. So now that I say the ideal time to say Shehechiyanu is at Kiddush, so now I understand why I shouldn't say it at a Bakos Neros, right? Because it's better to say it at Kiddush. But now once I say it's better to say it at Kiddush, why am I saying it at Bakos Neros? Right, at some point some woman was standing there and. Right, and no one had ever said Shehechiyanu on Neros before, right? It never happened. And then, like, either some husband told his wife or some wife thought of it on her own. She's like, okay, I'm going to make Shehechiyanu now. Like, what are you doing? Where's that thought come from? Why would you think to start that? Right? You see, like, it's a strange thing. Right, okay, maybe it's just strange to me. I don't know. It seems strange, right? Just out of nowhere. Be like, okay, I'm going to say Shehechiyanu. I mean, for like the last 500 years, we said Shehechiyanu at Kiddush, and now all of a sudden you want to make your own Shehechiyanu? Like, what are you going to make your own Shehechiyanu for? Why would you think to make your own Shehechiyanu?
Maybe it just came from someone who didn't have a husband, a widower or a divorcee, and didn't.
Okay, so why did she decide to do it at candlelighting and not at Kiddush? Still make Kiddush.
She identified more with candlelighting.
I don't even know what that means.
Her husband was doing Kiddush for 30 years. She was doing candlelighting for 30 years. So it felt more comfortable to add something to candlelighting than to Kiddush that she's never said before.
Right, but she's not adding it to Kiddush. That is Kiddush. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right, but for her it would be adding because she's never done Kiddush. I don't know. I'm asking like
Right. So,
you're creating a fiction of when this started. So I'm creating a fiction of how it started.
Yeah, I think your fiction's really fictional, but yeah, it's fantastical. So yes, I don't know. It's a very strange thing. There has to be some chachma behind it, right? There has to be some thought process to what you know. Okay, so let's start here. What is the Shehechiyanu on Yom Tov, right? Well, what's the Shehechiyanu all about on Yom Tov in the first place? What are we saying Shehechiyanu for? What is the Shehechiyanu on Yom Tov for? Right.
The periodic mitzvah.
So what's the mitzvah though?
Chag.
You see, now there's no mitzvah called chag. I mean, there is. It's bringing a korban chagiga, right? So that's not this, right? That's the thing. There's no mitzvah here. That's the strange thing, right? Which is why the Rambam needs a special halacha to talk about it. That's why he says that, like on Leil Yom Tov and on Yom Kippur, we recite a Shehechiyanu, because if it was okay, look, I'll bring it up here. Right, so you see source number 6 talks about any mitzvah that's mizman l'zman, right? That's what you're referring to, right? But then he needs source number 7 to tell you that, which is in Hilchos Shabbos, a completely different place, right? Where he says that every Leil Yom Tov and every Leil Yom Kippur you say Shehechiyanu, right? So if it was because it was a mitzvah, then he would subsume it under source number 6, right? But he doesn't. He puts it in source number 7.
So then the mitzvah that is that a chag has something in common with Shabbos, which is why it would be connected.
Wait, what?
That he's making the point maybe that we wouldn't necessarily think a chag has the similar concepts to Shabbos, and so he's saying that on a Leil Chag there's some commonality between that and Shabbos, and that's why you light candles.
Oh,
right, and that's why it's under the halacha of Shabbos.
No, wait, hold on a second. Lighting candles is a given. We're talking about the making Shehechiyanu at lighting candles.
Sorry, so the Shehechiyanu that he references in the periodic, there's some commonality with Shabbos and Chag that he's going to put the Shehechiyanu next to candlelighting.
But we don't make Shehechiyanu on Shabbos.
No, I understand. I'm saying the candle lighting are tied together. The brachas are periodic, and so to keep a consistent kind of refrain, he's going to tie it to candle lighting.
I don't understand why.
My question is confusing, or my answer is confusing. I'm grasping. I'm looking.
Yeah, Shehechiyanu can't have anything to do with Shabbos because then you would not make a Shehechiyanu.
We say Shehechiyanu on the Yom Tov because it's something new. It's a special occasion, just like we got a new shirt.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's the Shehechiyanu very good. So that's the Shehechiyanu on Yom Tov, right? It seems to be that Shehechiyanu is a bracha that reflects simcha of something new, right? That's if you're going to tie in all the Shechiyanus, it has to be like something good, right? Like you don't make Shehechiyanu at Avelos, right? Like that's a mitzvah that happens periodically, right? You bury a relative periodically, but that's not something you make a Shehechiyanu on, right? That's why, by the way, like Ashkenazim don't make a Shehechiyanu and a bris milah, because the pain of the son getting the bris milah takes away from the overall simcha of the mitzvah. So that's why Ashkenazim don't. You see, the Rambam lists Shehechiyanu by milah, right? So, so Sfardim do. Sfardim make a Shehechiyanu. My Ashkenazim don't. Okay.
And at a wedding?
At a wedding, I don't know why Ashkenazim don't. Sfardim do. And what happens in Israel is they give you a talus, right? And then you make a Shehechiyanu on the talus, which is like, so that's what everybody said. Now, even Sfardim have a talus, which doesn't make any sense. The Sfardim should just be making the Shehechiyanu for the wedding. And it also makes no sense to make a Shehechiyanu on the talus because you make a Shehechiyanu when you buy the thing, not when you wear the thing for the first time. That's something that people don't realize. So, like the whole thing's like all over the place. But
so, Rabbi, maybe the rationale of saying it on the candle lighting is you say the bracha on this new thing when it begins.
Okay, great, excellent, Scott. Right, very good. Okay, so here's the thing. You ready? So we make this. So the nature of the Shehechiyanu, right? The nature of the Shehechiyanu is that we're making a bracha on something joyous and like that happens periodically. That's new, right? That's new to us. So Yom Tov only happens 3 times a year. So that's, or 4 or 5 times a year. So that's like new to us, right? So that's why it requires a Shehechiyanu. Now comes the question of when's the ideal time to say Shehechiyanu, right? So the smart to say that kiddush over a kos is that's when we're being mekadesh the yom, right? What is kiddush? Kiddush is us being mekadesh the yom, b'chnis asel, right? At the entrance, at the start of the day. That's when that's what kiddush is. Now, we say kiddush, let's say half an hour into the day already. Okay, fine, but that's the opening, like of the Yom Tov is kiddush, right? So therefore, it would make sense to say Shehechiyanu al kos at kiddush because that's our sanctifying of the day. That's our opening of the day. Okay, but so then so somebody could say, wait a minute, hold on a second. Why at kiddush? Why not just say Shehechiyanu like as you're walking into shul on Yom Tov? When I accept Yom Tov, that's when I should say Shehechiyanu. Why over a kos? So the svara over a kos is to say it should be attached to some sort of mitzvah that's associated with the chag, right? That's clearly what they're doing by putting it to a kos, right? Because that's what I say. You can say even in the shuk. It's not attached to anything. He says, no, but ideally we should attach it to a mitzvah of the day. What's the first mitzvah of the day? So the first mitzvah of the day is kiddush. But then some wise woman raised her hand and said, wait a minute, that's not the first mitzvah of the day. The first mitzvah of the day is Adlakas Neros. Well, I start Yom Tov when I light candles, right? That's when I accept the Yom Tov. So I should say Shehechiyanu then, right? That's the first opening, mitzvah of the day. So what's the retort to that? No, it's not really the opening of the day, because candlelight you might refrain from malacha at that point, and that might be the start of Yom Tov. But really, when do we light candles? Before Yom Tov, right? We're really doing it before. It's part of kavod, not just oneg. So therefore, that's not the best time to do it. The best time really is the first time to do it is a kiddush. And that's the debate back and forth. You can go back and forth on it, right? Because you say Yom Tov, you can even light candles on Yom Tov, right? Because you're allowed to light on Yom Tov. Some people do that, like lechachila, they don't light before. You shouldn't do that, but some people do. But right, but that's the real debate. The debate is when's the first mitzvah of the chag, right? That's the question. And then
Would it be could it be Mariv? I know Mariv you're gonna say it anyway, but because we changed Mariv, wouldn't that be the first opportunity?
So it would make sense to do that, right? To do Mariv, right? And then just say it like sort of like what we say Sfira somewhere. But where in Mariv would we put it? That's the question. You can't put it like inside Brechas Kriyas Shema. It's not part of Brechas Kriyas Shema, and you can't put it inside Shmon Esrei, right? So you can't add a bracha to Shmon Esrei.
Like Shira before Aleinu.
Right. So it's interesting. I gave this share on Friday. We brought that up. So when it comes to Sfiras Omer, it's just something fascinating to know in the last week of Sfiras Omer. So nobody really considers Sfiras Omer part of Mariv. So that's right. Some people say before Aleinu, some people say after Aleinu, right? So the common thread is, the people saying it before Aleinu, they're including it in part of Mariv. So it really, that's not true, right? What the question isn't about whether Sfiras Omer is part of Mariv or not. The question is, what's the role of Aleinu? So Soloveitchik explained this. He said that the role of Aleinu, right, is two understandings of what Aleinu could be. Aleinu is either the Siyum HaTfilah, the end of davening, right? So if you hold it's the end of davening, so then that's why people say, okay, then we're going to say Count Sfira after Aleinu, right? But the people that say Count Sfira before Aleinu, they see Aleinu as a tefillah that you say before you leave your house. Before you leave to enter into the quote unquote real world of outside the Medrash, outside the Beit Knesset. So because if you look at Aleinu is not like a tefillah; it's a statement of axioms of faith, right? Aleinu Shabbat, we praise God. We don't praise the Avodah Zarah, right? So it's like the statement of faith that you say before you leave. That's why. Right? Why don't we have Aleinu after Shacharis on Shabbos? Right? We wait until after Musaf to say Aleinu. Really, we should be saying one Aleinu after. If really the end of davening, right? So then we would say Aleinu after Shacharis, and then say another Aleinu after Musaf. Because Musaf and Shacharis are two different tefillos, right? So we don't do that because that's a support for the side to say that Aleinu is really a tefillah that you say before you leave into the world, right? So the people that count Sfira before Aleinu aren't trying to make it part of Mariv. Their opinion on Aleinu is that Aleinu is the thing that you say right before you walk out the door. So if we're going to start adding things in while we're all gathered here together at night anyway, so then we're going to say that before Aleinu, because Aleinu's got to be the last thing we say before we leave the building. So there's no real Shehechiyanu to be said at Mariv because you just be reciting it. But to support John, when do we say it on Yom Kippur?
Throughout davening.
What?
Chazarat Hashat.
No, on Yom Kippur at night we say it at
Oh, at night. Right.
So right before like really like sort of like Yom Kippur, right? So so that's like that's a fascinating thing. The question is like this. I don't really know the answer to this. I have to look this up. But let's say you have a single girl who doesn't like candles, right? Like a teenage girl that doesn't like candles, okay? And she doesn't go to shul on Yom Kippur night, right? Let's say she doesn't go to shul, for whatever reason. She doesn't go. You have to go to shul. She doesn't go to shul on Yom Kippur night. So when does she say Shehechiyanu? On Yom Kippur night. It's like when does
When she would like candles.
what do you mean?
She's not lighting candles, you're saying.
She's not lighting candles.
But if she would like candles, that's the time that she would say Shehechiyanu when everybody else is saying it.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends. According to nowadays, maybe, but so I'm saying so now she's not lighting candles, and there's no kiddush, and she's not going to be with the men in shul who are reciting Shehechiyanu. So when does she say Shehechiyanu? So the answer to that question is she's just going to say it. She's just going to recite it like a fila b'shuk, right? Like even if you're walking in the shul, she's just going to randomly say it. It's not going to be attached to any mitzvah. That's what she's going to do. That's what's going to happen. Right?
Is it appropriate to ask at this point? You mentioned Sfiras HaOmer. Why we don't say Shehechiyanu the Sfiras HaOmer at the first night?
There's all one question about that. When you would say it because of one mitzvah, 49 mitzvahs, it's a whole different things. Yeah, but we're not talking about Shehechiyanu here, but it's a question that's asked. Yeah. %. Okay, so just to sum this up, right? Just to sum up here, what we're saying is the Shehechiyanu, right? Is a bracha on a mitzvah that happens periodically, right? And then right, so that's when we say the Shehechiyanu, what happens, a new mitzvah that happens periodically, and then also on Yom Tov that happens periodically, and we want to attach it to a mitzvah, and then the debate becomes what's the best mitzvah to attach it to. Right, and what's the debate centered around? Whether or not we're reciting Shehechiyanu on when I recite Shehechiyanu at the start of the Chag. What's the best thing that starts the Chag off? That's the question. And so that's the question of whether it's candlelighting or kiddush. That's the shiur. Okay, we're not going to ask shiur. Yes, sorry.
Another question. When we talked about marriage and the custom of saying Shehechiyanu at a wedding, are there any groups, maybe nowadays it's more popular for the woman also to say Shehechiyanu?
Under the chuppah?
Yeah.
And she's not doing the mitzvah. It's not her mitzvah. He's doing the mitzvah.
She has no mitzvah to get married?
No. Oh, there's a machlokes whether there's a mitzvah at all to get married or whether it's assumed under peravu. So if it is, it's his mitzvah only. She's passive in the act of marriage, right? He's mekadesh her.
Okay.
Right. Okay. John, do you mind staying on for a minute?
No, not at all.
Okay, we're not going to have shiur next week because it's Erev Shavuos. So we're not going to have next week. Okay.
Rabbi, just one quick question. I'm not sure if the timing. If Yom Tov starts on Saturday night, where maybe you would light the Yom Tov candles after Shabbos, would that change anything as far as when, like, saying Shehechiyanu then, because it's technically Yom Tov as opposed to normally, like you said, it's a little before Yom Tov?
Yeah, I don't think so because it would still be no. I think I mentioned that a lot of people may only light candles on Yom Tov itself. So yes, I don't think that would change anything much. Even regular when it's not Shabbos, they'll wait.
Single women that begin lighting candles, or they begin lighting candles the first time when they get married. The first time that they light candles, they'll say Shehechiyanu on that mitzvah?
No.
On Shabbos?
No.
Why not?
I don't think the first time you do a mitzvah, you make a Shehechiyanu.
Isn't that what the Rambam was talking about in terms of?
No, it's a mitzvah that you do from time to time. But just because it's the first time that she's participating doesn't mean that it's a mitzvah you do from time to time. It's every Shabbos.
Does a bar mitzvah boy say Shehechiyanu the first time he wears tefillin?
No, we don't say Shehechiyanu the first time we do a mitzvah. Right. That's not a thing. It's when you do a mitzvah, when a mitzvah is on the calendar scheduled from time to time. But a bar mitzvah boy would, when he buys his tefillin,
Right.
that's when he would say Shehechiyanu. Yeah,
But if it's not his money,
it still is.
oh, okay.
Yeah, still his tefillin. Yeah, it's a good question. I have to ask. Right now, my father and my father-in-law are shipping and buying Moshe's tefillin. They're being written right now. They're trying to be written the way they were.
But that would apply not just to a mitzvah of tefillin, that would apply to if we bought him a car. We
Yeah,
would
but for a
say,
different reason.
Shehechiyanu.
Yeah, right, for a different
Right.
reason, though. For a different reason. Yeah. Right, 100%. All right. Yeah, totally different reason. Okay.
All right, Yeshua.
Okay, be back in 2 weeks. Okay.
Take care, everyone.